going to analyze what happened in that engine. That engine used an air compressor. Yes, in the common rail, the fuel and the air are at high pressure, and there are a couple of feedings to check the pressure of the air, the pressure of the fuel, and we are going to verify how is the procedure to use the gauge in order to verify those pressures in that particular engine. This is a special engine, and I want that you enjoy this analysis. Professor Rodriguez, what is the first step?
First step, okay, if you come on this side, the first step is you have the lift pump. The lift pump is what draws the fuel from the gas tank to the filter. And from the filter it goes into the high pressure pump, which actually has a float that it gets to a certain point, and then the high pressure feeds it to the fuel rails.
The common rail.
Okay? And the fuel rail, on this system, you have air injector and you have a fuel injector. This is a direct injection engine, okay? So what happens is one side is gonna have air and the other one side is gonna have fuel. And there's two fittings. Gauge, there's your gauge here. And then you're gonna hook one up to the air side, one to the fuel side.
For the fuel. What gauge is for air?
This one here is for fuel, and this one is for air.
For air and fuel.
So we're gonna turn it over so you can see it.
All right. Danny, what happens if only the air pressure rises and the fuel goes down?
Okay, so what happens is if the fuel pressure is not up to par, the injector is not going to be able to fire the fuel in the
Correct.
cylinder. And if the air pressure is lower than the fuel, then fuel will be dumped into it. The air is what keeps it equalized.
Oh,
that's why you need 90 pounds of pressure and 80 pounds of fuel
okay,
pressure.
this is the normal.
On this system, correct.
Okay, what is the symptom when both of them are below?
Well, first of all, it won't run.
Oh yeah.
It won't run.
Is possible remove the output hose of the high pressure pump to verify if the pump is pumping?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you could actually do that from right here.
It's not dangerous?
No. Well, it's got 42 psi, so you have to be careful.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right. And any other recommendation in relation with the high pressure pump?
Well, the high pressure pump obviously it has a float. So what happens is you have a float that it allows only a certain amount of fuel. Because if not, it'll bleed out, and there's a dump off. It's like a vent.
Correct.
Which actually this line's been cut, but it'll actually go right back into the intake. So if there's an overflow, and then what happens is if there's an overflow, then the engine will run rich because it's getting too much fuel.
Danny, exactly the same like in other engines. If I have a problem with the low pressure pump, can I install any other low pressure pump in series?
No.
No?
You want to use only the manufacturers.
All right. Okay. Danny, one more question. What about the injectors? Is a different injector?
Well, the injector, how this system works is the computer controls the injector according to the crank position sensor. Each injector uses a 5-volt reference. So when the engine needs to get more fuel in the cylinder, it gives it 5 volts right from the computer. It controls the negative side of the injector.
The negative side. All right, correct. Can I check the injectors exactly the same like in diesel engine with the engine running? Can I check if the voltage enter?
Yes, you can.
All right. With you prepare your multimeter with a couple of perfect. Okay.
And you can also do a drop-down test if you wanted to isolate the cylinder. And if you let's say you have good compression and good spark, and you think it's a bad injector, you can unplug each one and see if the cylinder changes or not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Now we have another engine, 2-stroke, high technology. This is an Evinrude E-Tech with a special specification for the injection system. We are going to analyze this system. This is a special system. Professor Rodriguez explained step by step. We are going to start, Professor Rodriguez, in the low pressure side. The low pressure side is a composition of mechanical and electrical.
Yeah, this was actually mechanical. So this part here is your mechanical fuel pump. This one uses the vacuum and the pressure of the crankcase. There's two inlets, okay? And then there's a diaphragm that moves in and out like this to draw the fuel from the fuel tank to the filter, and from the filter it feeds all the way to the high pressure.
The low pressure, and after that the high pressure.
And then it pressurizes. There's a pressure regulator built inside this.
Because we have two low pressure pumps. One low pressure pump, pneumatic, because it's working with differential of pressures. And after that, pass through the filter and enter in the other electrical low pressure pump. And after the electrical low pressure pump, enter in the high pressure pump.
Correct.
Danny, this is the element that the majority of the cooler pumps have internally?
Correct. Most of this model has that. And when the water passes through those coils, cools the fuel down to keep the temperature.
Oh, the water is passing inside of the pipes.
Inside the pipes.
Okay. And the coil is at low temperature, and
and what keeps that cool is the pressure of the water pump.
Correct.
Runs through the engine. Actually keeps that.
Yeah, the majority of the fuel injected engine have this system. No?
Yes.
All right.
Also, like on the previous engine that we looked at, you can take an injector and swap it to whichever cylinder.
Yeah.
This one you can't. You actually have to program each, and there's a programming code right here
The number of
that tells you, so the computer knows who it's talking to. That's how it controls the polarity of the injector. There's no default. There's actually a software for each individual one, so the computer knows who it's talking to.
Danny, according with this, the ground in this type of engine is critical.
Oh, it is absolutely most important.
Yeah, the most important.
Corrosion, it will absolutely cause electrical issues.
A lot of complaints related with the low pressure, intermittent pressure is because of bad ground.
Backgrounds, correct.
That's okay. It's critical.
And then as far as on the spark plugs in this, is using a champion plugs, pretty much a traditional
How the
plug.
spark plugs work together with
Yeah, so how the spark plug works, so the coil system, it gets its power once it gets it from the computer and it shoots. But this one, in this case they call it the indexing. So if you look here in the line, you make a line for the open electrode. Okay? So when you install this, you have to install it either, you can be 90 degrees or 90 degrees the other way, 180 degrees.
The opening in front.
Yes. If you do it this way, what happens is the spray pattern is disrupted, and what happens is it will work, but it'll foul out the plug.
Oh, incredible. And what is the symptom? Misfiring.
Misfiring.
Oh, nice. It's only because the position of the spark plug is not appropriated in front of the injector. Normally, it's like this, no? In the combustion chamber.
Correct. Yeah, you want it facing
like this. That's perfect.
the open electrode.
Oh, incredible. Okay, guys. In this particular engine, in the E-Tech Evinrude, you have injectors with 55 volts DC. For that reason, I recommend, not only because this engine, in general, I recommend try to keep a source of DC power. This is basically a rectifier that converts AC power into DC power, and you can calibrate the output 13, 9 volts, 12 volts, 22, 24, 36, 34, 30, yeah, you can calibrate the output according with this dial. With this equipment you can get 55 volts, and when you have 55 volts you can verify if the solenoid internally in the injector is working, and you can hear the click. This is an indication that the solenoid is, in this particular case, in good condition. Remember, the solenoid, this is the output, the jet, but this is the input of fuel, and this is the return. This is the input and this is the return, and this is the discharge internally in the combustion chamber. Alright, I recommend the source of power DC is very important, because with this you can check any type of injector. For example, the signal for this injector is 5 volts DC. I am going to calibrate to 5 volts DC. Okay, 5.1, and I am going to check those injectors. If I introduce fuel at high pressure here with a priming pump, I can verify the pattern of the fuel coming out through the injector.